Ave. Today we're going to be looking at an alternative solar panel for your power station. This one, it was sent to me by Paxcess. It's like access with Pax on it, so Paxcess. And it's a foldable solar panel, you know, your standard. I did kind of open this box, but I didn't like fully take it out or anything. It's your standard foldable sort of solar panel type thing. It can hook up to many power stations because it has like a lot of different ports on it, which I'll get into for a moment. Now, one thing that's interesting about this panel versus the Jackery panel, besides price and the fact it's actually a bigger panel, it is actually a 120 watt panel. This is the Rockman Solar 120 Pro. The other thing about this solar panel is it claims that it's waterproof, which the Jackery panel makes no claim to. Now, just looking at it, as far as like the fabric, sorry for that Velcro sound, that always kind of sucks, and the actual panels, this is actually a much bulkier setup as far as like width than the Jackery panels. It takes up way more space just to unfold this and set it up. But that may not be a concern. I mean, to me, all of these panels take up a bunch of space to set up. Now, this also, just like the Jackery panel, actually has grommets, so you could also hang it, you know, while you are camped. I would never advise that you use these to permanently mount a panel, but if you have a way of hooking it to or from your van, using these little grommet systems, they have two on the bottom and they have two on the top, so you don't necessarily have to set this up on the ground. Because it has the four-sided fold out, it just does make it a little bit bulkier than Jackery's panel or some of the other panel options out there. I keep using the Jackery because I personally only have the Jackery to test it with, so I won't be able to test it with anything but the Jackery. And so we have our little user's guide here. Just taking a glance. It says do not immerse the solar panel in water, but duh, of course you wouldn't do that. That's not waterproof. Means if it rains, I don't have to like kill myself getting out to get it. I mean, like, that's usually how I take waterproof to be, not like drop it in the middle of the ocean. So this product is covered by a 24-month warranty from the day of purchase, for normal wear and tear, alterations, misuse, neglect, accident, service by anyone by an authorized service center, or an act of God are not included. That's general stuff that companies do to protect themselves. It says that this can charge the Rock Pals, the Jackery, and the Goal Zero, which is some of your bigger names, so it's already built to charge all of those. So even though it says waterproof on the box, which would be, it's one big thing, it says, are the foldable solar modules waterproof? To maximize the lifespan of the module, it should not get wet. So this probably has about as much water resistance as the Jackery, but they shouldn't have that on the box, because that's kind of a lie. I think I hear a noise. Hang on one second. All right, he's gonna be back there walking around. He's on his leash, so he can't go too far. So like I said, this one's gonna be this is a little bit bigger and bulkier to set up than the Jackery panel. I'll try to do a comparison picture if I can get to it, because I have to go up on the roof for it. I store them up in my roof storage, but what we basically want to see is how does this even just have an initial response to the Jackery. The plug for the Jackery definitely does exist. You have a really long plug here. Okay, you have one of these guys, and that connects to this, which has inputs for all different types of sizes of power station, which should work all equally, basically. What it does not have is an MC4 connection, so if you wanted to use this panel in conjunction with anything but a power station, you wouldn't be able to use it for that, but you can use it with almost any power station easily, because they're probably going to have one of these various inputs. Right now what we're going to do is just hook it to the Jackery. So it's definitely charging. Initial thoughts. I'm not a big fan of all these pigtails. They can look really ugly just hanging out of the device. But really, it's not a big deal. It's just not as attractive as the Jackery panels. It doesn't look as clean to have all these guys hanging out. But it's nice to know whatever power station you get, you'd probably be able to use these panels with it. So it's something I would be able to live with. If you're lucky, then you'd be able to charge off the direct cord and maybe you wouldn't need this. This is a very long cord. So you could go for a while with this. This definitely takes up this one panel. I don't know how well you can see it. Takes up almost as much space as the two Jackery panels, and while you're getting more than one panel, you're getting less than two panels. So there's that to imagine. But if you have like the Jackery 500, something like this might be great because you'll get 120 watts of potential solar, and most solar panels aren't going to be pulling their full capacity, so you might get a little bit more than you would get out of a single Jackery panel, and we'll be doing that test on a separate day. Alright kids, so now we have out the Paxcess, I think I'm saying this right, 120 watt solar panel and the Jackery 100 watt solar saga. So we basically have the panel that was created by Jackery for the Jackery, and here we have an alternate panel that will charge the Jackery as well as a number of different other power stations. But because I have the Jackery, we're going to be using this panel with the Jackery. I also have my little pairing cable, so we're going to run a test just to see if you could if let's say you got one of these and then you wanted to add a different panel, will it work just as fine? So we're going to do a couple of little tests here with these two separate panels, but first let's just do a general comparison of the two panels. So this panel is really long. It has 4 of these going quite far off camera right now. It's a little more awkward sitting in the grass. It has like a little fold to it. It isn't quite sitting as flat as the Jackery panel, which once you open it, because it only has 2 panels and a stable leg, but you know, on each side of this little fold, like the whole thing is sitting really stable, whereas this one does not. Neither one of these are really adjustable unless you put something behind it. They're not really adjustable. They have one setting for their legs. This panel sits a little bit lower than this panel. This one sits a little bit higher. And depending on what kind of sun you're getting at what point in the day, you know, it could be good or bad. At one point this might be better, at another point this might be better. But this panel is sitting at a I guess a deeper angle than this panel, and this one's shorter but it's longer. This one's much more awkward to unfold and set up, whereas this one honestly is pretty easy. This one has magnetic closures, so as soon as it gets closed, it kind of just snaps closed. This has like Velcro. It closes fine, but it's just not, you know, as nice as that like nice little clean metal snap that happens when you fold up the Jackery panel. So that's just the overall comparison. Does it really matter if this works? It's cheaper and it provides overall more power possibilities. Probably not to most people, but on a quality comparison, you can see sort of some of the really nice build choices that went into the Jackery over the Paxcess, but there's nothing wrong with this panel. It's just, you know, it has 4 folds, it has a more sort of awkward middle, but it also has more power. This is 120, whereas this is only 100. So you get 100, you know, 20 more potential watts out of this. Also, because it is a little bit more flexible, you can do little tricky things with it that you can't do with this panel. Now, both of these panels have grommets for hanging. This has 2 on this side, and then it has 2 more on the end on the other side. Jackery, the same thing. You have basically 4 spots for hanging. The Jackery also has a handle on each side, which really, honestly, you could also use as a hanging option if you were hanging this on the side of a vehicle. This one really only has the grommets, so that's the only thing you could hang from if you wanted to hang this on the side of a vehicle. But let's be real, what you guys really care about is, what do you get out of it? I have a 100-watt panel and a 120-watt panel, both sitting in relatively the same amount of sun. So when I hook it up to the Jackery, what's going to happen? Let's find out. All right, my friends. The first thing we're going to try is the Paxcess panel. Just because, honestly, it's closer to my hand. Now, as I said before, this has multiple connection points that could connect to a plethora of power stations. They've probably tried to cover every power station out there. And what we're going to do with this is we're just going to find the 8mm one, which is the one that goes to the Jackery, and we're going to plug that one in. The Jackery is currently at 68%. All right. Now, friends, these are not optimal conditions. I just want you to remember that. We're just doing this as a comparison contrast. I know for a fact in good sun, this panel has pulled over 50 watts. Right now it's only pulling, it looks like it's settling around 16 or 17 watts. And we're just going to use that as a comparison to what the Jackery panel can get under the same conditions. So now I'm plugging in the Jackery's native power cable. As you can see, we haven't really earned much, but we're kind of rushing through these testings because I'm in a situation where I have to. And so the Jackery panel is plugged in, and we'll see what it does after a few minutes. Okay, so under similar conditions, it does seem like the Jackery panel is pulling better wattage. But maybe we aren't being fair to these panels. Let's go ahead and swap sides and see what the panel does. All right, so I have moved the Paxcess panel to the exact same spot that the Jackery panel was in, past tense. And just to make sure this test was a little bit more fair, because it did seem to lose big. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so it seems like those positions weren't equal, because now it's giving us an output that's a little bit closer to what the Jackery was giving us, which was in the 20s. Now let's try pairing these together and see what we can do. So what are my final thoughts on this panel? Well, if you have a Jackery, honestly, the Jackery panel is better. You don't have to deal with that tail with all those extra little connectors on it. You're not really getting that lower of a price. Like this one is. Editing Dawn, interrupting to say, actually, with my 20% off discount code, you actually do get pretty close to half the price of a Jackery panel for a panel that pretty much performs as well as the Jackery panel itself. The Jackery. But if you are unsure how to charge your power station, having all these extra plugs, I'm gonna dig them out right now, is really useful. Like my first power station, I had no idea like what kind of plug to be looking for it. I'd never gotten into plugs. I didn't know all the names for them. And so it has this plug as well. So you have your adapter with your multi-plugs on there for so many different power stations. And then you have this plug, which might work with some. And so that is really, really useful if you are using an off-brand station or something like that. Now, if you want something that's going to connect to like an MC4 connection or like a battery you have in your van, this isn't the panel for you. This is purely the kind of panel you want if you have a power station and you're not sure what kind of connector it has. This will cover all your bases. It'll plug in, it'll play, and you don't have to stress too much about it. And that way, it's a great panel. So now the fun part. I get to give away one of these panels to one of you guys. So I just need you to add a comment that tell me why this Rockman panel would rock your life. Again, in the comments, you have to tell me why this Rockman panel would rock your life. I came up with this entirely randomly. I don't know how to run a giveaway. And you have to incorporate those words into your comment. And in a week, I'm just going to randomly pick somebody whose comment amused me the most. It's so hard to find a fair way to do these things. So, yeah. Again, tell me in the comments why this Rockman panel would rock your life. And I'll pick my favorite answer for the giveaway. How you feel about that idea, Supervisor Mickey? Okay, gotcha. Also, don't forget, you can just flat out buy the panel from the company website, and my discount code will get you 20% off. That's 20% off the price of the panel.